day, YouTube, and hello again to my subscribers. It occurred to me that it's been almost 2 years since I woke up to the flat earth reality, and although I have shared my experience with many people, I have not taken the time to share it with all of you. So there's a bit of a backstory to how I woke up, but I'll try to be brief. When I was a kid, long before computers and handheld devices, and as barbaric as it would seem to be, we actually had to entertain ourselves. So, to pass the time during recess break at school, for example, me and the boys would play a baseball-related game we called 500 Up. Okay, the first guy up to bat would have as many baseballs at his feet as there were guys in the field waiting for the perfect pop fly to land in their glove. The object of the game was simple: to be the batter. If you caught a pop fly, it was worth 100 points. 1 bounce was worth 75, 2 bounces 50, 3 bounces or a grounder was worth 25. Get to 500 first and you go up to bat. Okay, this was somewhere between grade 3 and 5 for me, but I remember it like it was last week. Now, this was also around the same time that we were taught in school about the rotating Earth and the little thing called the Coriolis effect. Now, they didn't teach us how the rotating Earth supposedly affects the wind directions in the two hemispheres until the first year or so of junior high school. But they did teach us that objects that are detached from the dirt surface are subject to the Coriolis effect. To simplify that, we were taught that the Earth is rotating under any object not touching the ground. Now, to reinforce this simple concept with a visual reference, they demonstrate how this works by using a rotating body such as this. The two guys are rotating, and the one guy tosses the ball to the other. The ball goes straight, and the guy keeps on rotating. Now, this is very simple physics of the rotating Earth. So simple it can be fully understood by a grade 3 child. The Earth continues to rotate under any object not touching the dirt surface of the Earth and traveling in any direction. Now, the reason for this backstory, and also the reason I remember it so clearly, is that as soon as we were taught this simple spinning Earth so-called fact, me, along with all my friends, all put our hands up at the same time to ask the same exact question: does the Earth rotate under a baseball? And of course the answer was yes. So for the rest of the class, all eyes are on the clock, and as soon as that bell rang, it was a scramble for the door. We couldn't get outside fast enough to put this to the test. Well, the excitement soon faded as we realized we couldn't notice any rotating at all, and by the end of the day our thoughts were on to other things, never to think of it again, until high school, where the rotating Earth makes another brief appearance in the textbooks in relation to wind directions in the northern and southern hemispheres, and as before, never to be thought of again. That is, until about 2 years ago. I found myself temporarily laid off from a full-time job in a foreign country. I didn't have any friends here at the time, and I had seen everything on Netflix that interested me. So I went on YouTube for the first time and was just looking for some funny animal videos or some instant karma videos, you know, that sort of thing. Anything to pass the time while I waited for the call back to work. At one point, I noticed videos popping up on the sidebar about NASA, and eventually I clicked on one. Needless to say, I was floored by what I was watching and proceeded to watch a few more. Now, my head was still spinning from that experience when I started noticing flat Earth videos now popping up on the sidebar. Now, I managed to ignore them for a while until I seen one with the Coriolis effect in the title by a YouTuber called The Morgile. Now, I remembered learning about the Coriolis effect, so I clicked on the video. Now, I'm as skeptical of what I'm told as anyone, But what this guy presented in his video was nothing short of an instant migraine. He first reminded me of what I learned about the rotating Earth in school, and as far as my memory served me at the time, he was absolutely correct. And then he showed me how and why he knew for himself that what we are told is our spinning ball reality is in fact not our reality. Now, I know what you're thinking. This guy is no skeptic if one video on YouTube has him convinced of anything. Well, not only was I skeptical of this Morgile dude, but I was skeptical of myself and my recollection of what I actually learned in school about the rotating Earth. So, I found this. The Teacher's Guide to Teaching the Coriolis Effect, Because the Earth Turns. Brought to you by the American Meteorological Society, backed by the National Science Foundation. Now, it pretty much says it all right here on the first page of the introduction to the Coriolis effect. Let's start from the top. Now, it talks about wind and ocean currents, and then goes on to say, other objects, including planes and boats, freely moving horizontally almost anywhere on Earth, except at the equator, turn left or right. The turning of these moving objects' paths, as seen from our vantage point on Earth, is the Coriolis effect. Why does this curved motion occur? Now, I would like to stop here just for a moment. Who has ever witnessed this apparent curving motion, and where is it, and the calculations required to account for it, ever been recorded and documented in a professional scientific manner and presented to the public with practical, testable, and repeatable experiments? I'm just saying. Okay, so moving on. Aren't objects that are moving freely in horizontal directions supposed to move in straight paths? As described by Sir Isaac Newton's first law of motion, an object in motion should remain in motion in a straight line unless acted upon by an outside force. But there is no force acting on an object moving freely across the Earth's surface to cause it to turn right or left. Yet, except at the equator, the moving object is apparently deflected. Again, I challenge anyone to provide proof of these observations. There is no horizontal force acting to make this happen. Then there must be another explanation. Well, there is. The Earth is turning underneath the moving object. That is, the Earth rotates. So, there it is for the first time on page 1. The Earth is turning underneath the moving object. If you are in a plane, the Earth rotates under you as you travel in a straight line. If you fire a cannon, the Earth rotates under the cannonball. If you hit a baseball, the Earth rotates under that baseball, just like I remembered my grade 3 teacher telling me it did. A little less with every bounce, of course. Now, here's where you need to start thinking for yourself, okay? If what we are taught as children, while we are too young to know enough about the world to even consider it to be questionable, if what we are taught is true, just as we would have to believe it to be so because it tells us so right here in this book of science that is specifically designed to educate teachers just as much as the students on the facts and the physics of flying over a rotating Earth. If all of this is true, then a helicopter would only have to hover and wait for its destination to rotate to it from the west. Right? Now think real hard, because according to this educational document brought to you by the American Meteorological Society and supported by the National Science Foundation, the helicopter would indeed be detached from the Earth and the Earth would immediately begin to rotate under it. Am I wrong? Of course not. It says so right here, a few times in fact. So this is about the time when the globe defenders in the chat threads will try to say that, oh, it's all relative, or maybe they will say the atmosphere is tattooed to the Earth. Okay, well, if any of that horse shit is true, then why teach about a Coriolis effect at all? Okay, everything would be relative. and the apparent curved linear path of an object detached from the Earth and moving freely while the Earth rotates under it would not be a thing at all, now would it? So like I said, folks, you have to learn to think for yourself. An eastbound flight on a passenger jet is only capable of an average airspeed of about 600 miles an hour, and the Earth is rotating at 1,037 miles an hour at the equator. How are eastbound flights even possible if the Earth rotates under a detached object such as a plane faster than the plane itself can travel? And why are the flight times almost identical in any direction, directly relative to distance and airspeed, plus or minus head or tailwind? These are questions you need to answer for yourself, I guess. But I've come to the conclusion that if there are no logical scientific experiments that are easily testable, repeatable, and verifiable, and there are no easy to explain and unquestionable answers to the questions at hand, and the scientific community pushes assumptions as facts and theory as reality through the education system, such as a rotating Earth without one shred of testable proof, then I simply cannot allow myself to believe the Earth is rotating. Just as I cannot allow myself to believe Earth is a sphere when there is no visible or measurable curvature to be found anywhere, over land or sea, even using today's highly advanced technology, including long-distance laser tests and microwave transmission tests over open water and at distances that should not be possible according to the globe science. If what we are taught in school about Christopher Columbus and the ship sailing over the horizon and behind the curve at only a few miles out to sea is actually true, then when we go to altitudes upward of 120,000 feet, almost 4 times the height of the average passenger jet, there would be very visible and measurable curvature absolutely everywhere. But that's not what happens in reality. The horizon remains flat and rises with the eye to ridiculous heights. This is only possible on a flat plane. Even NASA's own footage shows the Earth flat when there is no fisheye lens distortion present. Not only that, according to 15 individual official NASA documents I reported on in a few videos, all fundamental calculations for design, navigation, and testing of everything from helicopters to rockets are all based on a flat and non-rotating Earth, as stated by NASA themselves in at least 15 separate documents. Again, this is where you have to think for yourself. To my friends and family, you know who you are. Real eyes, real eyes, real lies. I'm trying to give you your sight back. Please wake up, and please wake up others. Thank you.